everybody, and welcome to Hyrule Academy on this wonderful Friday night. It is, of course, 10 p.m., which means it's time to talk about dead things here on Radio Hyrule. I hope you're very excited, because we're going to be talking about ReDeads tonight. But first, let's cover a few things. First off, I'm MC Gamer, and I'm really glad that you could all come with me on another journey to Hyrule Academy tonight to learn about creepy things, because that's what we like to do here. We like to keep it creepy, dark undertones, and nothing happy. That song we were listening to was Tattered Slippers, and that was by Dark Sword, and that was requested over on my Twitter by Cyro Xeon and a Pluma Freak 500. Thank you both for requesting. Actually, one of you requested Midna's Lament, and one of you requested that song in particular. So I was like, I can satisfy them both with a wonderful song selection there. Anyways, it is time, my friends, to get right into the discussion. I want you guys to tune in right now over at RadioHyrule.com. Obviously you are, but go into the chat room, RadioHyrule.com/chatroom, and talk to me. Talk to me during the show. Your messages will be featured on later on the show. But now we're going to get right into the discussion about ReDeads. So ReDeads, a bit of backstory for you all. They're enemies that are found in Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, The Wind Waker, and to an extent, Twilight Princess. In Twilight Princess, we see ReDead Knights. We don't see actual ReDeads, I do not believe. But we do see ReDead Knights, which are very similar. So some information about them. We got a few sources of information about what ReDeads are. So they're very clearly zombies. They're zombies that you see in the game. They do attacks. Usually they grasp you and destroy your life meter, so to speak. And they do the damage. They're quite honestly some of the creepiest enemies inside the entirety of the Legend of Zelda series. This much is agreed upon by almost every Zelda player. So we have a few sources of information from them. The first one that I'm going to talk about actually comes from Super Smash Bros. Melee. Before I tell you what they said in Super Smash Bros. Melee, one thing I'd like to remind you is that this is a non-canonical statement. While this information may have come from Anuma and the team, it doesn't necessarily reflect canonical information. In Melee, the statue of the ReDead, or the trophy rather, says that ReDeads were just magic animated into hideous humanoid shapes. So one thing to consider is perhaps they're not actually corpses. Perhaps they're just magical baddies that just happen to appear, like Bubbles, because I don't think Bubbles are really a skull that just turned into flamey fire. No, that's definitely magic. There's some magic going on in that. Or choo-choos. Choo-choos seem to be magical. You don't think goo just... all the jelly jars in Hyrule suddenly bust open in choo-choos form. No. Magic. In addition, inside the Wind Waker, there's a figurine of ReDeads, and it states that the undead creatures live only in the deepest, darkest depths of Hyrule, or the Earth, rather. Which is very interesting how they word that, because they're saying they live inside the deepest depths of the Earth, which is funny because you find them inside the Earth Temple. So that's a little nod towards that. I realized that as I was reading it. But the one thing I want to mention in particular about that quote is that they said these undead creatures, they're not magic, they're creatures. Can they just be magical creatures? We never really got clarification on that. And in Majora's Mask, a gossip stone will tell you all about the ReDeads, and they say that the ReDeads and Akana were once members of the castle's dancing troupe. So are they saying were once members? Like, or were they parts of the dancing troupe as corpses, as the zombies, or were they actually humans that were reanimated? That's for us to discuss today here on the show. So everybody who's out there and talking inside my chat, I have a few questions for you. First off, are the ReDeads creatures or purely magic creations from Gandorf or other evildoers? So more specifically, where do they come from? And also I want to ask you guys, are ReDeads honestly the creepiest enemy in Zelda? I kind of want to know your guys' opinions on that. And how do they relate to other enemies? We'll be talking about my personal ideas, as well as a special guest personal idea. I have somebody with me in the studio to discuss ReDeads and some other enemies from Legend of Zelda. So in the chat, I do want you guys to feel free to discuss this openly as possible. Don't try to get as many ideas about ReDeads as we can, but let's keep it to ReDeads, folks. I saw a lot of Stalfo discussion inside our pre-show, and while I appreciate Stalfo and the discussions we could have about them, that's not this week, my friends. So try to keep your Stalfo discussion under wraps for right now. instead of that, keep your Stalfo under wraps, and let's talk about raps, as in Gibdo, mummies. I'll go sit in a corner now. Anyway, discuss these questions and more over at radiohyrule.com/chatroom, and we will be featuring your messages here on the show a bit later. But for now, it is time we listen to some wonderful music. This is an all-request show, pretty much, except for the last song. That's a song I picked. But no, everything you're going to hear today was been requested by the viewers and the listeners, rather, of Radio Hyrule. You don't watch this show, you listen to it. It's a radio show. Fantastic. All right, guys, enjoy the music. We'll be back in just a few. And welcome back, everybody, to Hyrule Academy. I hope you're doing well. I see that we have many, many things to talk about. You guys have been storming the chat with all sorts of theories about magic, dead things, zombies, corpses. It's absolutely dreadful, and I'm thankful to you people for typing it all into the chat, because it makes my thinking a lot less. Alright, so we've been listening to some great music. That was a wonderful song brought to us by Family Jewels 7X, and that was requested by Felix Nems. That was the Wind Waker medley that he did. Family Jewels, of course, a very awesome artist. Some of the greatest video game guitar covers that are on YouTube. Also quite skilled with an ocarina if you go and watch some of his videos. I really, watch and listen to some of his videos, that is. Some really great stuff he has done. Anyways, we're going to get right back into the meat of the discussion, everybody, because I have a special guest here with me in the studio. With me is Brooke.
Hey, hi. Hi, MMC.
Hi, Brooke. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. I'm just hanging in there, ready to do some talking about some dead things.
Excellent. So, Brooke, of course, you were at ZeldaFon.
Oh, yeah.
And you had a fun time.
I had a great time.
And you played NES Remix 2.
Yep.
And in that game, you played Adventure of Link.
Yes.
And you didn't play any other games during the marathon, right?
This is correct.
And that is the way we're going to keep it for the sake of discussion. So what is your favorite video game, by the way? Or is the favorite Zelda game?
My favorite Zelda game right now is the Wind Waker HD.
Oh, you like it?
I like the HD remake of it, and then Twilight Princess is right on its heels.
Oh, okay. So you like some Twilight Princess? Oh, and there goes my water. Just fell right over. Anyways, so what was your first Zelda game that you actually were able to play? So
the first Zelda game I actually played was Ocarina of Time for the Nintendo 64. It wasn't the reason I fell in love with the franchise, though. I got that game and Star Fox kind of took heels with that me, and then later on I fell in love with Zelda with the handhelds, Minish Cap and all that. So.
Right. So yeah, the handheld games, I thought that was actually my first, was Link's Awakening on my sister's Game Boy. I stole it. It was quite a fun time. But so overall, do you have a favorite Zelda enemy?
Favorite Zelda enemy? Most frustrating and favorite, probably like just the Stalfos, just because they're in every game. You expect them. They're there. You know what to do.
Yeah, I mean, they especially in Skyward Sword.
Yeah,
Skyward Sword, the Stalfo are definitely high tier enemies to defeat.
Yeah, so they're always there. You can always count on them. So they're frustrating, but I always enjoyed looking to see them.
Excellent. So let's talk about some dead things.
Yeah.
So the first question I want to have with you is about Gibdo.
Okay.
So in Majora's Mask, you know that when you burn the Gibdo, you get
a ReDead.
Exactly. When you burn a Gibdo, I believe inside it's not bottom of the well, because it's a...
I can't remember what exact area.
It's some lower area. You do some big trading quests with the Gibdos, but you burn one and it gives you a ReDead. I think that's maybe inside the entire game, which is something very interesting. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, like going with like the whole like previous questions you were talking about, are ReDeads with Ganondorf mainly, and if we look at where ReDeads are, they're only in 4 games where Ganondorf is besides Majora's Mask, is around, and it's in the timeline pretty much where Ganon was either sealed or the Sacred Realm was protected. They don't appear really much anywhere else on the timeline. So I feel like they, how do I put it?
They're directly
they're correlated, yeah. Where Gibdos they're been in a lot of the Zelda games, pretty much all of them. I feel like the Gibdo can become just to me it's just a timeline thing. It's really confusing.
So I kind of get what you're saying. How Gibdo are essentially Gibdo are just Gibdo, but in this game it just so happens that that underneath they have a ReDead. Because it's a different world, different rules, kind of. So, but why you don't see Gibdo is because Gibdo are different in Hyrule, perhaps.
Yeah.
And ReDeads are their own thing, a creation of Ganondorf. Okay, that's interesting. It's also related to that, but in Link Between Worlds, when you burn a Gibdo, what do you find underneath? A Stalfo.
Yes, you do. So I think it goes right, like I said, it goes with the whole timeline thing with Ganondorf, not just Ganon being around. Or it's Ganondorf's direct, it could be the direct creation through magic and things like that. So where Ganon was victorious in that timeline, I think he didn't focus more on that because he didn't need them around, where other things say there could be magic creations or from deep crevices underground, things like that.
Okay, so you're saying that the ReDeads are directly Ganondorf's thing, basically, and the only instance where we don't see Gibdo becoming that, the Gibdo don't become or in this game specifically, is because Ganon's not around.
Yeah, Ganondorf.
Ganondorf is not around.
Yeah.
If he's not around to do some dark magic. Okay, I get that. I can get behind that. So another question is, how do they relate to Stalfo? Because, I mean, they're both dead creatures. I mean, I don't want to go too much into Stalfo because there's a whole thing about the Lost Woods theory. But do you think they're related in any way? Do you think that how a Gibdo can become a ReDead, can a ReDead become a Stalfo? Is that a...
I think it's, if we just go into some more of like fantasy, like a Gibdo is just a mummified corpse of anything,
and a Stalfo is just a skeleton.
It's just a skeleton. So it could like Stalfos could be ReDeads, like or ReDead could.
They could be all chain. They
could all be chain.
Essentially the same enemy.
It could be all the same enemy, but
so
weaker.
Essentially, a Gibdo is a Stalfo inside, which we see in A Link Between Worlds. So maybe your burning is extra powerful. Your little candle, maybe you're just burning away the flesh too.
Oh yeah, well,
we're skipping the ReDead phase.
Oh yeah, and the thing is with that is the ReDead is a lot more powerful too. So I think with the whole time change and everything like that, with them, it's just they're all just different enemies, just and mummified things like that.
So one thing I saw a lot of theories about inside the chat is talking about how Ganon's magic is what causes ReDeads. And I kind of have a problem with this theory.
Okay.
Because let's talk Ocarina of Time. Inside the child timeline, Ganondorf is not powerful yet. He only gets powerful after you go to... What's it called? You go and get all the 3 spiritual stones.
Yeah.
You come back and Ganondorf is like, I have chased them out of the castle. I'm all powerful now. Get out of here. I've stormed the castle, you know? Zaps in the face. Heh heh heh. But what's interesting is you can go to the bottom of the well inside the child timeline. And there are ReDeads inside the bottom of the well. So which infers that they are not directly related to Ganondorf. Because why would Ganondorf be going and putting these ReDeads inside there? Could they just be leftovers from a previous villain? Because the bottom of the well is the place that seals Bongo Bongo originally.
Yeah. Well, also with the whole thing, as they say, is that ReDeads are only in dark caves and everything like that, but the first time we encounter them is outside in the square in Ocarina of Time when adult Link. It's the first time we see them, so I feel like saying they're just only down in deep dark places and things like that, I feel like they could be elsewhere, and so there might not be magical creatures, but they might be magically summoned just by Ganondorf, who discovered.
They could be both.
Yeah, they could be both. He could have conjured them up himself by discovering what they were, things like that.
Right. Okay, those are definitely some interesting theories. Thank you to Brooke for coming here and
thank you very much.
We'll be talking about what the community inside the chat has been up to talking about, because you guys got some theories as well, and I'm sure you guys have some discussions to get at me about that. So anyways, I want to thank you guys for your thoughts. Keep them coming inside the chat. And reminder to go to radiohyrule.com/chatroom in case you're tuned in but not in our chat room. Come and talk about ReDeads. We would love to have you. This is Hyrule Academy right here on Radio Hyrule. See you guys in just a few minutes. And welcome back, everybody, to Hyrule Academy right here on Friday night. It's Friday night, which means Zelda discussions with chat and listening to beautiful music, as well as remixes and talking about Zelda lore. It's an absolutely fun time, and if you're listening to the recorded version of this, what's wrong with you? You should be here live. Or you could be sleeping, but whatever. And by the way, that was a reference to Reggie, so shout outs to Reggie. I don't know if he's out there. He's probably not listening to this. He probably has no care for me and my silly things. I'm here with Brooke. Hi, Brooke.
Hey.
So, did you hear that last song?
I loved it.
You thought it was good?
It was really good.
We had a short discussion, actually. And the production values on it weren't off the wall, but it had some good thoughts.
Oh, yeah. It was nice.
It was a nice remix of Song of Storms from Philip K. And the name of the song is Rain, he just calls it. And Rain. It was requested by Grumblezard.
That's a name.
That's their Twitter name. I was like Grumble. I pasted it in my little Google Doc, and I didn't even take a second look at it until now. And now I'm like Grumbles. It reminds me of Rumble Roar from the Harry Potter musical.
Yes.
Have you ever seen that?
I've seen. You showed me a couple.
Okay, excellent, wonderful. All right, so let's start talking a little bit about what you guys have been saying inside the chat room. All right. So the first thing I want to talk about is, are ReDeads a part of Ganon's magic? And right off the bat, Robbie133 says it has to be a Ganon thing. Has to be. And Sir Quasm is going to expand on that, but it says, talking about the Super Smash Bros. Quote, they say, there might be some sense to it. Maybe ReDeads are previously dead, but reanimated by the dark magic of Ganon. Because if he could just create them on a whim, and they are as powerful as they are, why wouldn't he just release them everywhere? This suggests there has to be a body to animate. Thoughts on that? Think that's a fair theory?
That is a fair theory. It has to be something.
Yeah, there has to be something there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there'd just be ReDeads for days.
Which he could have chose the Gibdo, and they could have completely changed, so it could go back to that too. Right, okay, yeah, so it's like, if you can make these enemies, why not just make more Gibdo? Yeah.
Alright, that's a fair thought. It's, and in addition, we also, and unrelated to what these guys have said inside of the chat, one thing I have thought is, we find a bunch of ReDeads in where? Castletown.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of dead bodies are probably ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's a good place to hold them, I guess, at the very least. So, I don't know. I think that there's some theory about that. Some people said that everybody in Castletown was actually able to escape.
Yeah, I've seen some things that they did escape and when the ReDeads came, so there's kind of a couple theories on...
I personally, is it a canonical thing that everybody escaped? Chat, if you could give me a correction on that. Slowpoke as a gamer says, Ganon may have given them life, but I don't think they are revived humans. It could be that he simply created them, like he is somehow responsible for most of the monsters in Hyrule. So it's a very knowledgeable thing that Ganondorf is the one who created Moblins. Mm-hmm. He created them inside the image of what he wanted to be. He wanted to be Ganon, and so he made these monsters that are these little pig warriors.
Yeah.
And he eventually does become Ganon when he finally gets his wish.
Yeah.
So... what do you think about that? Do you think he's... we kind of talked about how they have to have something to animate, but... doesn't it kind of make sense that he could create? He did create Moblins after all.
He could, there's so many different ways, but I think he did create them, in my personal opinion. He created them. But they're a very strong enemy. I feel like he wanted a strong enemy ally for his part. They're one of the hardest things to kill that's usually around. So I think he did create them with his magic.
But did he require the body?
He might have. So
it's a Ganondorf creation, but it requires a body.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. And to wrap this up, we have a nice quote here from Giovanni Van, or as we say, Giovanni Van.
Giovanni Van.
Giovanni Van. He says, in talking about where we find them, he says they were. Actually, I'll say the quote as is. I hope you guys enjoy this. And they were in the Royal Tomb at Newt. They were in a huge sand prison in TP, and in Wind Waker they were in coffins. Indisputable. So. What he's basically saying is they have to be dead bodies, because you find them in places where there's going to be dead bodies inside a huge sand prison. I think Arbiter's Ground is not only a sand prison, it's more of a...
burial.
Yeah.
There's sand burial.
Sand burial, yeah. And they were inside a royal... yeah, so it does make sense that they're probably bodies. You have Royal Tomb, we have a prison, and we have coffins. So it's like, that's perfect places to put them. Mm-hmm. One thing I do want to actually go to, we're going to skip over the one thing, is Fell says, wait then. Why were there ReDeads under the Oasis cabin at a cabana in
Oh yeah,
the
and
Wind Waker.
Yeah,
Ganon wasn't there certainly, and also talking about the theory that we were just talking about. Why were there bodies in Mrs. Marie's basement?
This is. I mean, the whole Wind Waker thing is like it was the flood, the giant flood. So it could be left over from there that was built on top, but they're completely different. So
she also had a ton of money down there.
Yeah, she did have a ton of money.
And a shard of the Triforce.
So it could be leading to a lot of different things. She might have not been so good as previously thought.
Yeah. I mean, Sir Quasm says, Ganon doesn't have to be there for his magic to work, you know. So I think that's fair. You know, it's like the game that they could be there. I just want to know why there's these things out there. And to further add on theory that Ganon doesn't actually have to be there for them to make magic, Phil says part of the Triforce was there. Wouldn't Ganon have taken it? You know, but of course this only applies to Wind Waker HD.
Yeah.
So, I would actually take the canon of the Wind Waker over the Wind Waker HD on this one, that it was actually only going to be a chart. That being said, Gandalf probably still would have wanted to find it.
Yeah.
So I don't think Gandalf ever knocked on Mrs. Marie's door.
Said, "Yo,
hello, miss, may I check your basement for Triforce?" You know,
that'd be a good story to go on.
Fan fiction writers, I have a new project for you. I want to hear the story of how Ganondorf went over to Mrs. Marie's house and checked out the basement and found some dead bodies and reanimated them. Don't go down there.
Probably taught him some stuff too on how to rule the world.
Oh yeah, of course. Gave him some lessons, of course. Okay, Captain Trina says, this is a nice little aside message here. Though, as someone mentioned earlier, the Twilight Princess ReDead Knights are named Gibdos in Japan, actually. So in Japan, they are not called the ReDead Knights in Twilight Princess. They're called Gibdo. Which further solidifies this theory that the Gibdo are very much related to ReDeads. I don't know, but at the same time, they did correct it. Why didn't they call them Gibdo Knights here in...
I have no idea why they wouldn't have kept them Gibdo Knights, but I don't know, like, when looking at their make and how they are, I consider them more ReDead than anything.
They shout at you.
Yeah.
They shout at you and make you freeze.
Mm-hmm.
Gibdos don't do that. Actually, no. Gibdos do that.
But
inside Ocarina of Time.
Yeah. This is true.
I mean, it's such a silly thing, and I think we kind of have to go back to the idea of it's just a game a little bit.
Yeah, it's just a name thing that could change back and over. Like
Gibdos were inside the original Legend of Zelda.
Yeah.
Gibdos were before ReDeads.
Yeah.
Release wise. Mm-hmm. So I mean, we had to keep that in mind as well. Sir Quawsome actually says, this is something about Skyward Sword. Creepy enemies. What about cursed bokoblins? Oh my gosh, theory forming. I think that ReDeads came from dark magic. The connection here is simply cursed bokoblins are dead bokoblins reanimated as zombies. And so are ReDeads.
Yeah.
So that's
pretty...
I think that helps us along with the idea that it is dark magic that reanimates a dead body. Mm-hmm. ReDeads don't just form out of nothingness. They don't just like wake up, like you don't just die and sometimes... You know, Harry Potter wise, like sometimes a ghost just comes out.
Yeah.
No, this is actually in Harry Potter, you have to have a deep connection and want to stay inside the world, and that's how you become a ghost. Coming soon, the Hogwarts Academy podcast. Although I would love to do that. No. But no, I think that it's dark magic. I think dark magic, animated body. That's how it comes about. So we have some other thoughts here. Mr. Charizard says the creepiest villain in the moon is the moon. The creepiest villain is the moon. The creepiest moon is the villain.
The moon did terrify me the first time I booted up Majora's Mask. I was like, what?
After a while, though.
You got used to it.
Yeah, he's used to that big old smile.
Exactly. Like, hey, you're coming at me. You're coming at me soon, but whatever.
Energy Burst says, in my opinion, the Ocarina of Time Peahats are probably the scariest enemies because they are giant plants that fly and try to murder you. Pretty scary when you think about it.
First time I saw it, I had no idea what to do, and then when seeing the new Zelda U trailer...
With what appears to be some sort of peahat.
Yeah, which is exactly... And I was just like, my memories.
Oh no! This is spooky. Too spooky.
Laser beams now? Oh jeez.
I mean... I want to say the scariest enemy inside Zelda is actually the Dead Hand.
Yes.
Dead Hand. We didn't even touch Dead Hand. I don't know if everybody's too spooked in the chat to even consider talking about Dead Hand. But Dead Hand is also kind of inside that family of dead things come alive. Same with Wallmasters.
Yeah.
I believe Captain Trina actually mentioned that.
Wallmaster scared me.
Wallmaster, Floor Masters, they all kind of like... Although Floor Masters are kind of... They come out of the floor and they look like magic. They're just pure magic. Maybe those are misfires by Ganon trying to reanimate a giant hand. He's like, pooh! Oh, I hit the floor.
Just trying to make Master Hand.
All right. Anyway, guys, keep it tuned in to Radio Hyrule. We'll be back in just a few minutes with some conclusions and thoughts from you guys. See you guys in just a few. We are back with Hyrule Academy. How are you all doing? It's time at last to wrap up our show. At last. I know you guys were all looking forward to it. So, Brooke, what were we listening to there?
We were listening to Fi's theme remix.
And that was by, I was trying to offload saying this name
Brenston.
Spinsten. I think we might need my friend Steinus around to pronounce this one.
Yeah.
It's Breinstijn. And that was a song requested by Ziggy22. Ziggy actually wanted me to play a different song later on tonight, but I didn't have time to change the set list. I'm sorry about that, my friend, but I hope you enjoyed the song nonetheless. Anyways, it was an absolute an absolute pleasure doing this show with you tonight, Brooke.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. We talked about the ReDeads, and we came to a few conclusions. First off, the Gibdos, I'd say we have a 90% agreeal rate inside the chat that Gibdos require bodies and they have to be reanimated with dark magic. Mm-hmm. That is, I'd say 90% confirmed by the chat. Like, there's still like a 10% of you who are out there saying, maybe not. But,
maybe not.
But I'll say 90% is a fair number right there. That's a pretty... I am fine now. I'm just... Yeah. Master, I calculated 90% agreeal rate with your theory. Alright, fantastic.
You are fine.
Thank you, Fi. We had the Gibdo and Stalfo are related in some way to the ReDeads. Just like Dead Hand and Wallmasters. But the actual relation, it's probably not something we'll ever know. Although you did have a theory that they're related to the state of Ganon, if he's alive or not, timeline-wise. And I think it's a good theory, so well done. So I think that's going to be it for this episode of Hyrule Academy. Thank you all inside the chat for tuning on in into Radio Hyrule. And thank you, Brooke, for coming here.
Oh, yeah. Thank you again.
Did you have a fun time?
I had a great time.
You had a fun time coming here into the studio, and having real-life guests is actually pretty darn fun. Mm-hmm. I think we should fly in some people.
Just fly in a lot of people.
Because we definitely have that budget to start flying in people. All right, we're gonna fly in Miyamoto.
Well, hello, direct to you.
Miyamoto, we have a very important question for you. So, Miyamoto, are Gibdo, Stalfo, and ReDead the same thing? Tell me, Mr. Miyamoto.
I could neither confirm or deny.
Thank you, Miyamoto. Don't worry, guys. Brooke is Asian.
It's okay.
It's not racist, just you could say.
And we discovered that.
All right. Thank you again, Brooke, for coming on. And guys, it's time for us to say goodbye, unfortunately. But first, let's wrap things up a little bit. A reminder, tune in next week. Friday at 10 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. We do it live every week, except that one week we had to take off results. Oh, that's okay. We don't like to talk about that here. That is secrets. So next week we're going to be talking about a place that's near and dear to my heart. We're going to be talking about Holodrum specifically. So Holodrum is going to be our discussion. We're going to skip our discussions about Labrina for a little bit. We probably draw a few things, but talk about Holodrum and its seasons and things related to that. So look forward to seeing that. If you guys want to support the station, the Radio Hyrule, if you want us to be able to do more things, get more hardware, make better shows, things like that, go ahead on over to radiohyrule.com/donate and throw a few rupees inside the hat and see what happens. All right, and if you want to email me, mc@supermcgamer.com, you can send me requests, songs, whatever you want for the show. Just send it on over. I'm not picky. It's an open email box. Do whatever you want. Don't send me spam mail. All right. Thank you all for your inputs. And to finish off tonight's wonderful episode that we talked all about dead things, I think we need a little bit of like something to bring us up, something to make us a little bit more happy. And so from Brandon Schrader, this is I Like You. Enjoy the song. We'll talk to you guys next week. Keep it tuned to Radio Hyrule.